Most men believe power comes from speaking, from proving a point, from defending themselves, from making sure they're heard. But the truth is, the men who speak the most often control the least. Because every time you rush to respond, every time you feel the need to explain, every time you try to correct how others see you, you give away something most people never realized they had: control. There is a different kind of man. You've seen him before, even if you didn't fully understand him. He doesn't rush to speak. He doesn't react immediately. He doesn't chase validation in conversations. And somehow, without raising his voice, without forcing his presence, he dominates the room. People watch him more closely. They second-guess themselves around him. They feel something they can't quite explain. Not because he said something powerful, but because he chose not to. Silence, when used correctly, is not weakness. It is restraint. It is control. And in the right moments, it becomes something far more dangerous than words. Because silence creates tension. It makes people fill the gaps with their own thoughts, their own doubts, their own insecurities. And that is where real power begins. The problem is, most men never learn this. They react too quickly. They speak too soon. They try to fix every uncomfortable moment with words. And without realizing it, they lose the one advantage they could have had: the ability to choose when not to engage. In this video, you're going to see exactly when silence gives you that power. Not random advice, not abstract philosophy, but 9 specific moments where saying nothing makes you stronger, more respected, and far harder to read. If you understand these moments, you won't just communicate differently. You'll be perceived differently. So before we begin, pay attention to your own habits. Because by the end of this video, you might realize the words you've been using all this time have been working against you. And the silence you've been avoiding was the one thing you needed most. Silence sounds simple. Just don't speak. Just don't react. Just hold your words. But in reality, it's one of the hardest things for a man to do. Because silence forces you to face something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: the discomfort of not being in control of how others see you. Think about it. Why do you feel the urge to respond immediately when someone challenges you? Why do you feel the need to explain yourself when you're misunderstood? Why does silence feel so heavy, so uncomfortable, almost unbearable in certain moments? It's not because you don't know what to say. It's because you're afraid of what happens if you don't say anything. You're afraid that silence will be seen as weakness. That people will assume you don't have an answer. That they'll think you lost. And so, without even realizing it, you react. You speak quickly. You try to fill the space. You try to regain control of the situation with words. But here's the paradox. The more you try to control how others perceive you, the less control you actually have. Because once you start reacting emotionally, once your words are driven by the need to defend, explain, or prove, you're no longer choosing your response. You're being pulled into it. And that's exactly where most men lose their power. Not because they said something wrong, but because they spoke from a place of urgency, from a place of pressure, from a place of needing the situation to go a certain way. Silence removes that urgency. And that's why it feels so uncomfortable. Because when you stay silent, you're no longer trying to fix the moment. You're allowing it to exist without interfering. And that creates tension. A kind of tension most people can't handle. In a conversation, silence feels like a gap that must be filled. In conflict, silence feels like surrender. In social situations, silence feels like rejection. So people rush to escape it. They talk more. They explain more. They try harder. But the man who understands silence does the opposite. He lets the moment breathe. He lets the tension sit. He lets other people reveal themselves first. And this is where something subtle but powerful begins to happen. When you stop reacting immediately, You shift the dynamic. Instead of chasing the interaction, you make the interaction come to you. Instead of proving your value, you create space for others to question theirs. Instead of being predictable, you become difficult to read. And in any social or emotional exchange, the person who is hardest to read is the one with the most control. But to reach that point, you have to break one deeply ingrained habit: the need to respond right away. Because most men have been conditioned to believe that confidence means speaking up, strength means asserting yourself, and dominance means being the loudest in the room. But real control doesn't look like that. It looks like patience. It looks like restraint. It looks like choosing not to engage, even when you could. And that's exactly what Stoic philosophy teaches. Not to suppress your voice, but to master the timing of it. To understand that just because you can speak doesn't mean you should. Because every word you say carries weight. And when you speak too often, that weight disappears. So the question is no longer, do I have something to say? The real question becomes, is this the moment where speaking actually serves me? Or is this one of those moments where silence makes me stronger? Because once you start asking that question, everything begins to change. And from this point forward, we're going to break down exactly what those moments are. The moments where most men react automatically, but the ones who understand control stay silent, and in doing so, gain something far more powerful than words could ever give them. Before you can use silence as power, you have to understand one principle that sits at the core of Stoic philosophy. Not everything deserves your reaction. And more importantly, not everything deserves your energy. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this constantly. Not in complicated theories, but in simple observations about human behavior. He understood something most people miss: that the majority of what disturbs us is not what happens, but how quickly we allow ourselves to respond to it. Think about that. An insult only has power if you choose to engage with it. A disagreement only escalates if both sides feel the need to win. A moment of tension only grows when someone rushes to break it. And in almost every situation, that someone is the person who cannot stay silent. Because reacting feels like control. It feels like strength. It gives you the illusion that you're doing something. But in reality, you're giving the situation control over you. The Stoics approached this differently. They didn't ask, how do I respond better? They asked, does this even require a response at all? That question alone separates reactive men from controlled men. Because when you pause, when you create even a small space between what happens and what you do, you reclaim something most people never develop: choice. And choice is where power begins. Without that space, everything becomes automatic. Someone says something disrespectful, right pointing arrow, you fire back. Someone misunderstands you, right pointing arrow, you explain immediately. Someone challenges you, right pointing arrow, you defend yourself. There's no awareness, no control, just reaction. But the moment you introduce silence, even for a few seconds, the pattern breaks. You're no longer being pulled. You're observing. And that shift changes everything. Because once you observe instead of react, you start to see what's really happening. You see the insecurity behind someone's aggression. You see the need for validation behind someone's opinion. You see the emotional pressure in the moment, without being consumed by it. And suddenly, you don't feel the same urgency to respond. You don't feel the need to prove anything. You don't feel the pressure to win. That's when silence becomes strategic. Not passive, not avoidant, but intentional. There's a difference between a man who stays silent because he's afraid, and a man who stays silent because he understands the moment. One is withdrawing, the other is controlling. And people can feel that difference instantly. Because controlled silence has weight. It makes others hesitate. It makes them question themselves. It creates a space where they start revealing more than they intended. And the more they reveal, the less you need to say. This is why Stoics valued restraint so highly. Not because they wanted to be quiet, but because they understood that unnecessary words weaken your position. Every time you speak without intention, you expose your thoughts too early. You give away your stance, your emotions, your strategy. But when you remain silent, you keep all of that with you. You stay unpredictable. And unpredictability is a form of power most people underestimate. Because in any interaction, the person who is easier to read is easier to influence, while the one who reveals less naturally takes control of the dynamic. So silence is not about saying nothing forever. It's about choosing your moments. It's about understanding that in certain situations, your reaction is exactly what the other person expects. And when you don't give it to them, you disrupt the entire interaction. That's when things shift. That's when you stop playing the same game as everyone else. And that's when silence stops being uncomfortable and starts becoming a weapon. So now, we move from principle to reality. Because theory means nothing if you don't know when to apply it. And there are specific moments, very specific moments, where silence doesn't just protect you, it elevates you. Moments where most men lose control. But if you stay silent, you gain it. Let's break them down. The first moment, where silence becomes power, is when someone disrespects you. Not loudly, not dramatically, but subtly. A comment in front of others. A tone that feels slightly off. A remark designed to test you. Most men react instantly. They correct it. They push back. They try to reclaim their position with words. Because in that moment, it feels like silence means losing. But look closer. The person who disrespects you is not always trying to win. Sometimes, they're trying to get a reaction. To see how easy it is to move you. And the moment you respond emotionally, you give them exactly what they wanted. You show them your trigger, your insecurity, your need to defend yourself. But when you stay silent, something shifts. You don't rush to correct. You don't rush to respond. You simply hold your presence. And that silence forces them to sit with what they just did. It removes the reward. It creates doubt. And suddenly, the pressure is no longer on you. It's on them. That's when silence stops being weakness and starts becoming control. The second moment is when you are losing an argument. This is where most men completely fall apart. Because losing feels unbearable. It feels like your identity is under attack. Like your value is being questioned. So you talk more. You explain more. You repeat your points again and again, hoping that if you just say it differently, you'll win. But the truth is, the moment you start trying to win an argument, you've already lost control. Because now, you're no longer speaking with clarity. You're speaking with urgency. And urgency makes you predictable. It makes you easy to read, easy to push, easy to defeat. The Stoic approach is different. When the conversation starts turning, when emotions rise, when the need to prove yourself gets stronger, you do something unexpected. You stop. You let the other person speak. You let the silence sit. And in that silence, you regain something most people lose in arguments. Awareness. You see the direction of the conversation. You see the emotional patterns. You see where things are actually going. And most importantly, you remove yourself from the need to win. Because not every argument is meant to be won. Some are meant to be observed and left behind. And when you walk away, without trying to force the outcome, you don't lose respect. You increase it. Because control is not about dominating the conversation. It's about knowing when to step out of it. The third moment is when you feel the need to prove your worth. This one is deeper and far more dangerous because it doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. You meet someone new. You enter a new environment. You feel slightly out of place. And immediately, you want to show who you are, what you've done, what you know, what you're capable of. So you talk more. You share more. You try to present yourself in the best possible way. But underneath all of that, there's one quiet truth. You're trying to be accepted. And the moment you start trying to prove your value, you place yourself in a position where others get to judge it. You give them the power to decide how much you're worth. But when you stay silent, you do the opposite. You don't rush to explain yourself. You don't rush to impress. You let your presence speak slowly. Through your actions, through your restraint, through your ability to remain grounded without needing attention. And that creates something rare. Mystery. People start to wonder. They observe you more closely. They fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. And in many cases, they will assign you more value than you ever could have claimed with words. Because real confidence doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself over time. And silence is what allows that process to happen. And these are only the first 3 moments. There are others where silence doesn't just protect you. It completely changes how people respond to you. Moments where saying less gives you far more than saying more ever could. Let's go deeper. The 4th moment is when you are angry. Not slightly irritated, but truly triggered. Your body heats up. Your thoughts speed up. Your words come faster than you can control. In that state, anything you say is not coming from clarity. It's coming from emotion. And emotional words always cost more than you expect. Most men speak in that moment because silence feels like suppression, like you're holding something in. But Stoic control is not about suppressing. It's about delaying. You don't need to express everything immediately. You let the emotion pass. You let the heat settle. And in that space, you regain control of your words. Because once something is said, you can't take it back. But when you stay silent, you keep that control with you. The 5th moment is when someone is trying to provoke you. Not to communicate, but to pull you into a reaction. It can be subtle. A sarcastic tone. A dismissive comment. A small push to see how you respond. Most people take the bait. They react. They engage. They try to defend themselves. And without realizing it, they step into a game they didn't even choose to play. Because provocation only works when you participate. The moment you react, you lose. But when you stay silent, you break the pattern. You don't reward the behavior. You don't feed the tension. You simply don't engage. And that does something powerful. It makes the other person lose direction. Because their strategy depended on your reaction. Without it, they have nothing to work with. Silence ends the game before it begins. The 6th moment is when you don't fully understand the situation. This is where many men rush and make mistakes. They assume too quickly. They respond too early. They speak before they truly see what's happening. Because silence in uncertainty feels uncomfortable. It feels like you're behind. Like you should already know what to say. But reacting without clarity is one of the fastest ways to lose control. Because once you commit to a response, you lock yourself into it. Even if it's wrong. The Stoic approach is simple. When you don't understand, you wait. You observe. You let more information come in. You allow the situation to unfold without forcing your input into it. And in that silence, you gain something most people don't have. Perspective. You see more. You understand more. And when you finally speak, you speak with precision, not noise. Because sometimes, the strongest move is not reacting at all until you actually know what you're reacting to. We've now covered 6 moments where silence gives you control. But the final 3 are where silence becomes something deeper. Not just control, but influence. Not just restraint, but presence. Let's finish strong. At a deeper level, silence is not just a tactic. It's a signal. A signal of control. A signal that you are not driven by every emotion, every opinion, every moment that tries to pull you in. Most people speak to release pressure, to feel heard, to feel right, to feel in control. But that control is temporary, because the more you rely on words, the more dependent you become on how others respond to them. Silence works differently. It doesn't depend on reaction. It doesn't need validation. It exists on its own. And that's what gives it weight. Marcus Aurelius understood this, not by forcing himself to stay quiet, but by learning when speaking was unnecessary. Because unnecessary words expose unnecessary thoughts. They reveal too much too early. They make you predictable. But when you reduce your words, you increase their value. You speak less, but when you do, people listen more. Not because you demand attention, but because your silence created it. There's also something else. When you stay silent in moments where others expect a reaction, you interrupt the pattern. People don't know how to read you. They hesitate. They start questioning themselves. And that hesitation shifts the dynamic. Because in any interaction, the person who is less reactive has more control. Not louder, not more aggressive, just more controlled. And over time, this changes how people see you. You become someone who doesn't need to prove anything. Someone who doesn't get pulled into noise. Someone who chooses when to engage. That's where silence stops being a technique and becomes part of who you are. Not forced, not artificial, just natural restraint. And from that point, you don't stay silent to gain power. You stay silent because you already have it. Knowing these moments is one thing. Living them is something else. Because in real life, you don't get time to think in long sentences. You get seconds, sometimes less. And in those seconds, your old habits will try to take over. You'll feel the urge to respond, to explain, to prove something. That's the default pattern. So the goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. You start small. One moment where you would normally react, and you pause instead, just a second longer than usual. That pause is where control begins. At first, it will feel unnatural. Silence will feel heavy, awkward, even uncomfortable. But that's normal, because you're breaking a habit you've repeated for years. Over time, something shifts. You stop reacting immediately. You start observing more. You notice tone. You notice intention. You notice what's actually happening beneath the surface. And because of that, your responses change. Not forced, not calculated, just more precise. You speak less, but when you do, it matters. People start to feel it. They interrupt you less. They listen more. They take your words more seriously. Not because you demanded respect, but because your restraint created it. Silence also changes something inside you. You stop needing to win every interaction. You stop needing to be understood immediately. You become comfortable, not explaining everything. And that comfort is what makes you grounded. Because now, you're not reacting to fill space. You're choosing when to step into it. That's when silence becomes part of your identity. Not something you force, but something you naturally carry. And from that point on, people don't just hear you differently. They feel you differently. Let's bring this together. There's a reason most men avoid silence. Because silence forces you to sit with yourself. No distractions. No quick reactions. No easy way to escape discomfort. Just awareness. And that's not easy. It's easier to speak, to react, to fill every moment with words. But easy rarely leads to control. Everything we've talked about comes down to one simple shift. You stop asking, "What should I say here?" And you start asking, "Does this even need a response?" Because the truth is, many of the moments that feel urgent aren't actually important. They just feel that way because you're used to reacting. But when you step back, when you allow silence to exist, you begin to see clearly. You begin to choose instead of being pulled. And that's where everything changes. You don't get dragged into arguments. You don't get pulled into emotional traps. You don't waste energy proving things that don't matter. You stay centered, calm, controlled, present. And over time, people notice. Not because you said something impressive, but because you didn't need to. Because in a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the man who knows when to stay silent stands out, not loudly, but undeniably. So the next time you feel that urge to react, to explain, to prove something, pause, just for a moment, and ask yourself, is this one of those moments where silence gives me more? Because if it is, say nothing, hold your ground, and let the silence do the work for you. If this shifted how you see things, take it further, train it, apply it, refine it, because control is not built in theory. It's built in moments like these. And if you want to master that, stay close to ideas like this. Not more noise, just better control.